Hello and good evening. My name is Krasimir Kustudinov. I'm CTO of Scalefocus. And tonight we'll be talking about AI writing our code. My guest is Cvetan Smardansky.
My name is Cvetan Smardansky. I'm a technology manager in Scalefocus. I have about 12 or 13 years of experience in the field, but now I'm managing the .NET teams in Scalefocus.
Yeah, and the reason we'll be discussing Copilot is we did an extensive Copilot experiment last year with development teams in real-world environment, measured real KPIs, and we learned a lot. Copilot learned a lot about us, and now we'll discuss a lot of the topics we found out, and hopefully dissuade some of the mysticism around AI writing code. So, first of all, maybe not all of our viewers tonight are familiar with what exactly Copilot is. Can you elaborate a bit more on
sure. Copilot is a cloud-based AI tool that should help the developers in their day-to-day work. The project, in fact, for creating Copilot begins in 2020. It's right after the release of ChatGPT 3, and it's actually based on the Codex engine that is created for the ChatGPT 3. And from then on, the idea is to have a friend or buddy programmer that sits next to you and help you with your coding.
Okay, and so basically an AI engine that can write code with some inputs from developers.
Yeah, exactly.
How did Copilot change the approach to software projects and in general?
Well, Copilot is giving the developers new ways to solve old problems. Makes easier for the developers to start with new languages, frameworks, platforms, or whatever they have to deal with. And probably the best thing that it does is to solve the boilerplate problem code. This is when the developers have to write code that it's not fun to write, but still takes much time to do.
Okay, and when initially the developers that you supervise and so on started using Copilot, what were the, and you personally, what were the biggest surprises in terms of expectations versus reality?
Well, we can divide that into benefits or drawbacks of the tool. Probably in the benefits there are no surprises. They are widely advertised. Everyone can see that in the information in the internet. Regarding the drawbacks, it has some flaws that the developers must pay attention to. For example, it can easily open the code to security vulnerabilities if you're not careful with it. It can generate some performance issues or other things, but it's still up to the developer to pay attention to what he's actually producing with the tool.
And maybe for clarity, we should add that basically Copilot has like two main modes in which it's used. So one is you write basically some explanation in a type of a comment, basically, depending on the language you use. And then it generates the code you want, and then you can compare different solutions. And the other approach is to write it basically a prompt again, but then make it so it creates 10, I believe, different iterations over the code you want, and you go through them and select one of them as the solution. And it's
it depends on the developer which way they will prefer to use. But yeah, both ways we will need the developers to examine the code that is generated first, and after that to implement it into the final project.
And sometimes it just like auto-completes code inline.
Yeah, it's like autocomplete on steroids.
Yeah, but I have a bit of a different opinion. But let's deep dive a bit and then start sharing more interesting stuff maybe. So, how long have our developers been using Copilot so far?
The initial version of Copilot was released in the late 2021, and soon after that there were developers that started testing it. In fact, they tested it mainly in internal projects or some training kind of projects, this kind of stuff, because using it in projects for our clients is not so good the idea back then, because there are many concerns about the exposure of information to the cloud service.
There still are actually.
Yeah,
and yeah, that's one of the main adoption challenges in front of Copilot. Many companies don't want necessarily to use it because they see more of a risk and liability versus an actual tool that can help. So now we'll share some data on our findings, and we'll share some slides. The key here is first to get a grasp on how we collected data on real Copilot usage. The short story is we had a baseline reading of various KPIs, both gathered through surveying, and some of them gathered through static code analysis, basically run locally on the developer machines. We did that for 2 sprints, which makes it actually for 1 month. That was the baseline reading, and then the same teams and in the same projects and so on continued for 5 sprints with the use of Copilot. And we had 2 survey reports, one when a task is complete, one when the whole sprint is complete. And then we constantly evaluated data in terms of data quality and made sure we're not collecting garbage data. So the question to you is, how did you decide to gather data about Copilot and its usage and so on?
With the time, Copilot started to grow in popularity, and it's definitely proved itself as a tool that's beneficial to developers in some ways. At least these were the rumors we hear, and we needed to adapt to that. So we needed to think of some way to evaluate if this tool is worth it. We couldn't believe the pure marketing messages that were given by the advertising of Copilot, like the things that it will make the developers develop 55% faster or something like that, because it's just single number without context and anything. And there are in fact many variables that may be taken into consideration to see in which area Copilot will do better and in which will get in the way of the developers. So that's basically the reason we to start thinking of a way to evaluate the tool.
So briefly, in terms of the data points, they're right on the screen right now, but we compared various types of data, both manually collected from the developers and also objective data gathered through systems that scan code. And we basically bundled that data into various takeaways that we can do based on that data. So can you share maybe some moments that Copilot subverted expectations?
Yep. Well, you see on the screen, in fact, that according to our measurements that we did, the lines of the code written by Copilot, for example, to resolve a bug, are 3 times more than without Copilot. And it seems that Copilot generates much more code for just some simple task. But in fact, this is not just it's just not the code to resolve the bug, but if it gives the developers better maintainability, better code coverage, and because of that, to improve these factors, the code is more, because Copilot thinks of more cases than the regular developer at some point. On the other hand, it seems that the tasks, I mean, new features implemented in the projects require less code written by Copilot rather than when the developer writes it by themselves. And the time to implement a small task is another interesting finding. Is significantly more with Copilot compared to the case without Copilot. Because when you start exploring the suggestions, it can take you much more time than just writing the code by yourself for something small. Still, it has a positive in that, because it will provide educational element for junior developers and people with less experience in the field.
Okay, so to give some perspective on the data that you're seeing on the screen, so lines of code per story point means how many lines on average throughout all the teams and all the tasks, and regardless of whether they're bigger or small. Basically, we're dividing by story points. So on average, bugs used to take much more code to actually resolve, but that came down to actually having more unit tests after the bug is resolved, which leads to better maintainability. On the other hand, one of the biggest surprises for me as well was that I thought that Copilot will actually lead to generation of excessive code, and it turned out that it actually, on average, developers are producing per story point, of course, measuring complexity of the task. They're producing half as much code as before, which is great for maintainability. And the other takeaway from here is, for small tasks, it takes more time to read through all the suggestions and code options than to just write it yourself. But the upside is that it has an educational side effect to junior developers who see different ways to do things, maybe things that they didn't know about the language or the framework they're using. And it has about, on average, about 20-ish% improvement in terms of speed of delivery. But it's not the wow factor we were promised by all the hype.
It's not, yeah.
And also, as we said, it leads to, depending whether you're fixing bugs or writing features or on more or less code. Another important point is nobody will use a tool that they don't like. So the feelings of the developers towards Copilot are quite important, because at the end of the day, if they don't like it, they wouldn't use it. So right here, you can see actually on the screen the NPS, so Net Promoter Score, the famous how would you recommend from 1 to 10, blah, blah, blah. The idea is that's weighted NPS, first of all, which means that detractors, people voted 1 and 2, and promoters, basically 9 and 10, are weighted with a higher weight than just the average opinions. And it's measured from -100 to +100. So everything about 40 or 50 or even 60 is quite great. So people are quite happy with any product, service, tool, whatever that has more than 60. So you can measure on average what the notion is. Can you tell us maybe a bit more on the satisfaction?
Yeah, sure. First, I should say we here have a very high NPS for using the Copilot. In fact, one of the comments that I got from the developers that participated in the test was something that supports the thing that you just said, that it turns out to be very helpful in the situations when you don't know the language or the framework or whatever you're using. They had such tasks with not familiar frameworks, and Copilot helped them orient very fast. So this is one of the reasons to have this high score. And yeah, overall, the comments that we have are mixed. There are some good, some bad, but the good comments are much more than the bad ones.
So it helps for a developer to get themselves acquainted with complex code bases, basically having different frameworks, different languages, and so on. What you can see, dear viewers, from the data is that on average, developers seem to be a bit more happy when they're resolving bugs with Copilot, but that doesn't mean that they're not happy when they're creating new features. And when you slice the data in terms of the size or the complexity of the tasks, large tasks tend to be quite the domain of Copilot. Basically, developers are quite happy when Copilot helps them in large tasks, not so much in medium tasks. I'm wondering, they spend more time on small tasks with Copilot, but somehow they're happy by doing it. Maybe that's another surprise from the experiment. So it's a quite interesting another surprise actually, and it's quite a common question. So there is no way around it. We should ask it. Basically, do developers produce more code with Copilot?
Do you think that more code means better productivity?
No, but yeah, I look at code as risk. Basically.
Exactly. It seems that the developers write less code with Copilot. Probably it suggests better approaches, more optimized code, and actually the quality is what matters at the end.
Yeah, we'll delve into the quality, by the way, quite a bit, just in a few minutes. But what you can see from this chart is, on average, a developer produces, without Copilot, about 12 to 13 lines of code per hour. When measured across the timeline, they used Copilot. And the surprise is they actually produce less code with Copilot, but somehow deliver features faster. So, yeah, that was a revelation, definitely. Again, an important aspect of code is maintainability and testability, because once you have a piece of code, you own it, and that means it owns you.
Yeah.
So what was the impact of code maintainability and testability?
Well, you see the graphics. With Copilot, we're noticing 30% improvement on time spent writing the unit tests for new features, especially. Which is a rather big improvement in my opinion. This time could be used for anything else. But on the contrary, fixing bugs, which means working on old code and fixing it, improving it, and etc. Slows down the writing of the unit test, which could be due to the fact you have to maintain old things and needs to improve them and whatsoever. So with this, Copilot proved itself worthy to not worthy but useful. Sorry, useful for writing tests for new codes, and as expected. In fact, it saved the efforts of the developers in that thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe some interpretation over the data that you're seeing. On average, so that's the total time in hours spent working on unit tests on small, medium, and big tasks. Yeah. And also, and the big task is an outlier here, so we don't have clean data on that. And fixing bugs, we had bugs registered on small and medium tasks. So on average, a developer spends about an hour and a half, maybe, on writing unit tests for a small task. And on medium tasks, it's about double. And we are not seeing major differences. As you said, it's up to 20-30%, depends on the task at hand. And the percent of development time working on unit tests, that's percentage of the time that the developer spent writing unit tests for a task. Without Copilot, used to be actually less before Copilot. Now it's about 11%, 12% of the time is spent. So not only time-wise, but percentage-wise, it grew. While as on tasks, it's actually less time writing unit tests, but at the end of the day, we do have more unit tests as a whole when using Copilot, right?
Yeah.
So what is your comment on the effect of Copilot on coding practices?
Yeah. So the data that you're seeing here is the part that we gathered with automated code analysis with SonarQube. You can see that we measured several aspects, but just a few of them are showing some differences in the measurement. What's is interesting in the end result is that despite the popular opinion, we have reduced the duplicated code box when using the Copilot. Because if you search in the internet, you can see that Copilot is a tool that doesn't care about code duplications and offers duplication all the time, but it seems that it solves the problem in the real projects, at least in our surveys. Yeah. Also, we can see slight improvement in the so-called code smells. Code smells are pieces of code that might be considered as maintainability issues or can affect the performance of the applications, but are not necessarily security or some major issues that need to be addressed ASAP, but still contributes to the technical depth of the project. So yeah, Copilot improves that metric as well. And what is concerning here in our findings is, in fact, I mentioned it in the beginning, we can expect a new security vulnerability for each fourth task we complete. And this should be monitored very closely by the developers that are using Copilot, and to try not to go there and introduce new vulnerabilities.
So that puts an end to the myth that AI produces perfect code,
yeah,
basically.
Exactly. AI is not perfect yet, we will see what will happen. But still, the developers must not rely on any AI tool to meet the coding standards and the highest quality standards. And yeah, Copilot is not a developer by itself, it's just a helper tool, and it depends on the developer how to use it.
And the other takeaways, just to give some clarity on the data, those are the deltas. Basically, with each task submitted, what was the delta in terms of the KPIs that the static code analysis tool measured in the code base. So when you see, for example, minus 1.85, that means every time some developer completed, before Copilot, completed a task, on average, the number of alleged duplicated code blocks, actually duplications are pretty well measured, but almost 2 duplications of code blocks with every task are gone from the code base. After the introduction of Copilot, that trend continued, but the important thing is, because refactoring in that case is constantly done, basically there were fewer duplications to remove down the line, because we are talking about 2.5 months of continuous usage of Copilot, 5 sprints.
Even
right?
a bit more, yeah.
Even a bit more. So in that time, the number of duplications constantly was
reduced,
smaller and smaller. But even with Copilot, duplications didn't rise, they continued to fall in the code bases general. It's negligible. I mean, it's the number of new bugs. It's and usually the bugs are done by humans, so that's not a surprise in my mind. Of course, as you mentioned, on every 4 tasks we have a new security vulnerability, and almost negligible difference in average security hotspots measured, but I wouldn't say in favor of Copilot, because the difference is so minute. And the average number of code smells fell drastically. So it definitely has some baseline good practices in terms of code smells, not so much in terms of vulnerabilities. But then that was our experience. Of course, depends on your code base, I guess. So how does Copilot handle complex, high standard coding requirements?
Well, Copilot is not designed to do that. It generates boilerplate code, the one that is not fun to do as a developer, and in that way it lets the developer to focus on the complex tasks. This is the situation what's like it's now, because Copilot is a tool that constantly evolves. It learns and changes over time. So yeah, for now the complex cases are something that developer must handle by themselves, and yeah, Copilot just helps with the boring stuff.
What were the challenges that developers faced while adapting to using Copilot?
Yeah, it's something new, Copilot, and it gets in the way initially. It starts to suggest you some pieces of code, to tell you how to do the things, and getting used to it is the challenge at the beginning. Also, the other thing is that the developer must get used to the fact that there is something there in fact directly in the IDE that they're using that is ready to help when it's asked. So yeah, getting used to the fact it is there is the main challenge that we faced. After that, it's completely different.
And maybe Copilot takes time to get used to the developer's code as well.
It's a learning curve. Once you start using it and start accepting the the fact that it's there to help, not to get in the way. It becomes better and better every day because you become better as a developer that is using Copilot. Sorry, and the Copilot adapts to you as to your style and start to give you better suggestions. If yeah. It's a two-way process of education, let's say.
And how steep is the learning curve? I mean, a developer that hasn't used Copilot, is it hard to start using it
Once
efficiently?
yeah, once they overcome that initial moment to get used to the fact it's there, it's very easy to work with that.
Are there some tips and tricks maybe on how to write better prompts or comments?
It will come with the experience. The prompt, Copilot is it's not a person that can understand you. So the prompts that you're writing must be very specific to the things that you want. They must be very detailed and to include all the cases that you want to handle with a piece of code that you want generated by the tool. So the more you use it, the better you become in writing these prompts, and also Copilot is getting better with the suggestions that you give, that it gives to you, because every time you accept a suggestion, it learns what you like, what your style is, and what to give you the next time.
Maybe a harder question with Copilot, but an important one for the discussion we're having. What are the ethical considerations of using AI generative tools, basically LLMs, for writing code?
Yeah, it's a deep topic.
Yeah.
Again, as I said, Copilot is learning from you. It's learning from the things you write. Your project, it can scan everything in the project, and it analyzes that, which is, the projects that the developers usually work are not open source, they're proprietary, they're someone else's, and in fact, this code goes somewhere else. You don't know exactly where and how it's used for the education of the AI. And due to that, it can turn out to be a mean of unintentional plagiarism, if I'm saying the word right. So it's the main concern that the people have, and it's important thing that need to be taken into consideration before starting using Copilot. The second thing that I can think of in terms of ethical consideration is the dependency on Copilot that the developer can
develop.
Yeah, can develop. Sorry for the repetition. It can affect his skills or his or her skills. It can reduce his ability to think critically, and in fact, they will become worse developers due to the fact they use some AI generative tool to produce their code. And eventually, we will have worse code as a result of that. There are several other things that we can mention as considerations, like Copilot is not a tool that is compliant to any regulatory requirements, so it's not compliant. And if you have such, you cannot count on it that you will generate something that will be useful to you. Also, when you're working with clients, like we are, these clients should be fully aware of all the risks that Copilot can introduce with its usage. And the main one is to expose some proprietary code, as we already said. but they are secure to that because Copilot could be the first AI generative tools for programmers, but now it's not the only one. And there are alternatives. Some of them could be installed on premises, and if you switch to some of these, like CodeWama is one popular choice for that. You will not have to send your code to unknown parties. Yeah.
And also the challenge is not only IP intellectual property considerations with the code. Once you use Copilot in your basically IDE, your configurations, your some sensitive data might leak about systems, about IP addresses, you name it, that can be used for a potential attack. Not only that you might find your IP or great algorithm in someone else's code. And yeah, so again, we should look to the future. Can you give your predictions on what are the next big things in AI code generation coming up? Because right now they're like every other week another AI generative tool pops up. And actually some of them like Duet are heavily advertised. So definitely the landscape is becoming more interesting. There are many competitors. Now it's a whole ecosystem. So what are the predictions that you have?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know that software developers are trying to automate everything since always, even their own work. So yeah, writing code, the automation of writing code is not unexpected, and we can sorry for that, just yeah. What I wanted to say, yeah, the developers are trying to automate everything since the beginning of the profession, and we have many evidence of this thing to happen over time, like with generating code snippets from modeling language like UML, like generating code from templates and scaffolding in some IDEs. The frameworks, the libraries are also a way to automate part of the work, and now we have the Copilot, which is the smartest way to automate our job nowadays. But in my opinion, it's still in a very initial state. We have much to see that will come in the hopefully near future. For example, some of the things are already out there and exist, like Copilot Text, which is another form of Copilot, but it's integrated with ChatGPT-4, and makes the tool a bit better in understanding human language, and even it has voice support, and you can actually talk with it. You can tell him, tell it to write this type of code, and it will do it. The next steps that we expect to see, probably it's something that will look fantastic today, but I expect to see some generative tool that will not just produce some pieces of code, but probably a whole solution just from given requirements in human language, like from your Jira tickets or whatsoever. And this project will require just very minimal involvement of software developers and engineers, and at the same time will not violate any copyrights, legal restriction, and etc. So these are parse that.
But if we're going into a direction that less involvement of humans is required, will Copilot surpass the developers, become the developers?
Well, I'm not one of the people that think that the AI will steal our jobs. It will evolve, and we will evolve with it and find a better way to be part of the software development process with the help of the AI tools. You see, historically, if the first software developers were people that were making perfo cards, and nowadays there are no such people, you know, but they adapted to the new things and started,
Yeah, almost nobody is writing assembly language
Also,
anymore,
yeah.
and nobody is crying that,
But
yeah,
But-
C++ or C stole our jobs of assembly language developers. So, but another important misconception maybe that we should clear out is, and we actually did already, as all the viewers saw, Copilot is far from writing perfect code. So maybe the caveat here should be, don't overtrust AI just because it's AI. At the end of the day, it's pieces from somebody else's code. So how much do you trust random strangers? But another big development that I see actually are efforts to automate, because Copilot in the software development lifecycle, it focuses mostly on implementation. And I see vestiges, actually beginnings of trying to use AI tools in the design phases of a software project. For example, I believe it's Builder AI or something.
Builder.io.
Builder.io. There are multiple tools that, based on description and some pictures, if you will, you can create a Figma, a clickable prototype of an application. Not just the code, but you can create clickable prototypes. So UI, UX work is trying is basically being automated as well. So various aspects of the, at some point I assume that software maintenance and support will be automated. Basically triggering AI models to do some things based on logs, based on analyzing various aspects of a system and so on. So currently what I'm seeing is it starts from the implementation phase of the SDLC, but it grows into basically a full-fledged solution for every step of the SDLC.
Yeah.
So I believe that will be the future as well. Another thing is, I believe the current tools, even tools like Copilot and so on, will become much better because they will be in a much more competitive environment with so many Copilot-like tools coming up. So
there's definitely concurrency in that market nowadays.
Yeah.
It developed very fast. A couple of years ago, we had just this Copilot. Now we have plenty of tools to choose from.
another important aspect, which is pretty easy to do, actually, we have experimented internally in the company, as you know. Large language models can actually do kind of hit and miss, but can do sometimes code reviews. So that is a topic that will definitely, basically, every developer will be able to have like their own code reviewer by their side, always, in the near future, hopefully. And the other thing is, the demand for custom hardware will grow for AI because it's more and more used. It's overused, I believe, right now because people are experimenting what they can do with it. So the future is definitely bright. We are coming on the next step of code development practices, definitely. but it's not the end of the software engineering industry. So for all of you in school, don't drop out. Software engineering is here to stay. And yeah, now we have 15 minutes to go. So we'll go to the live chat, and hopefully there are interesting questions from the audience and things you want us to discuss, or questions you might have, concerns. Okay. So yeah, definitely language models can be used for a lot of things. One of them is data analysis. How do you think AI will impact data analysis?
Well, before that, AI is the AI is as good as you train it, and currently, before jumping into some more complex tasks that we can give to the AI, I think there's something fundamental that must be changed, and this is the technologies for data storage. And before we have something new, something revolutionary at this point, we cannot expect probably much from the AIs nowadays, but once we have that, even complex tasks like data analysis, making some, I don't know, complex reports from many places and very fast in real time could be something that will happen very easily with AI tools like that.
So do you believe that the AI which we have has access, is only a fraction of the full, can access probably? So basically, do you think the AI that we have right now is basically only achieved a fraction of its full potential, is the question, by Stefan Stanchev?
Definitely. Definitely the AI technologies are still developing. They're, in my opinion, in their early state of developing, and we will see much more. We will see Star Trek soon, probably.
My thinking on this is, unless, and there are glimpses at that, with the current architecture of AI models, especially LLMs, I'm speaking of LLMs because that's what I have most experience with. Using current architectures for LLMs, and we don't have significantly more data than that we have 2 years ago. And bear in mind, we are talking about ChatGPT as if it's an established thing, but it's here from it released publicly 3.5 less than 2 years ago, 1 year and some months ago. So definitely it's in the beginning, but my thinking is, with regards to large language models, they have so many parameters now that we cannot grow on parameters because it becomes economically unfeasible to have much bigger models, and parameters can be roughly equated to neurons in the human brain. So to give a perspective, a human brain is about 80 billion neurons, and most of the large language models nowadays, even open source like Mistral, are 7 billion models, 7 billion parameters. There are 70 billion parameters, and ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4 are vastly more than the human brain in terms of neurons. So there is a sweet spot about maybe 20 to 50 million parameters that the model becomes like thinking. But I don't think we'll have significant gains through the current architectures with adding more parameters, or of course we'll create bigger context windows, but we wouldn't have some vastly new capabilities coming out of that, and we don't have much more data than we used to. Actually, in that light, I now understand why Microsoft bought GitHub. When Copilot came out, I then understood what the heck they were doing. Yeah, we will see developments, not necessarily in large language models as we see them today in the next year. That's a bold prediction, by the way, but it holds true. But that's a prediction I made a year from now in the heat of ChatGPT and so on. So 4.0 is not significantly better than 3.5. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking, you said that the number of parameters can be growing and become economically reasonable to have so much, but on the other hand, we can use some other approach to improve the work of the AI assistants, like chaining multiple AIs, each of them with different purpose. For example, like how is the combination between Copilot and ChatGPT-4 to produce Copilot text. You use the output from one of the tools to give prompt to the other one, and if each tool is very good at its job, probably the end result will be something that
you can use like a team of experts, basically different models experts, and one model to route. There are various architectures to improve, but we are talking about marginal improvements, talking less than 100% every time we have an improvement. And also the other thing is, I do believe that large language models specifically will be used in various aspects, for example, for data analysis. Because currently of the 4 main types, which are actually 3 if you ask Bill Inmon. So the application data, we have analog data measurements, and we have textual data, unstructured data, and we have archives of those 3 types. So the textual and unstructured data, we didn't have good enough tools to analyze up until now. Large language models are definitely a game changer in that. So the current big data that corporations and society at large has will be used in actually interesting insights of that data will be found based on textual data that's collected. Also, I believe that interesting out-of-the-box uses for the current LLMs will be found, and also some of the models that are not so widely spoken about will make a big impact on society by, for example, DNA, so basically protein folding is a hard process to compute, but AlphaFold makes it easier. So models that do specific things in things like research for pharmaceuticals or stuff like that, basically will find cure to some diseases. Pretty soon, actually, we're starting to see that. So AI will, at least for the foreseeable future, continue to develop. LLMs, I don't think they'll have a huge change in that. But we have other questions, so maybe let's answer them. So another one, do you think it will make adoption of new languages easier and feasible? Question by Tariq.
This one of the examples that I gave, that developers feel more forgot the word, sorry. Confident, feel more confident using new languages when they have the support of Copilot or any other similar tool that works good enough for that, and they can produce
But
better quality.
to reverse the question from earlier, do you think that confidence will lead to better quality?
Well, if it's an experienced developer and they have they understand the concepts of code quality, security, and etc., they will probably see these aspects no matter what the syntax is. It's close enough after all.
Yeah, like I remember one discussion with Linus Torvalds when he was asked about bugs and so on, and his answer was that most of the bugs he has seen, and nowadays he's mostly merging code, are pretty obvious. So subtle bugs are like 1% of the bugs. So I believe that AI in the next few years will actually help us get rid of most of the obvious bugs, hopefully. Oh, that's a long question that just came in. If you see LLMs as a better and faster Stack Overflow to ask how to do something in some unfamiliar framework, you're not really exposing your client's code. The devs have been using Stack Overflow for years. Do you think that that's a good approach for initial adoption of LLMs in our everyday work? So basically there is a statement and then a question. The statement is how is it different from using Stack Overflow, which is a fair point actually.
Yeah, but the developers are used to using Stack Overflow every day. Copying code from there is something like a normal thing now. And using code from Copilot is considered still somehow exotic. But after all, it's in its essence is the same thing. You're taking someone else's code and incorporate it in your project. Copilot makes this thing much easier. So you practically can build the whole project by someone else's code in this way, because I suppose no one will start aggregating projects from Stack Overflow snippets. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's a good approach for initial adoptions of large language models in our everyday work?
It's whether it's a good approach. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a question from Peter Kimov.
It hides many risks. The whole thing with the AI generated code hides many risks, and we just not have to believe it blindly. So the best approach, according to me, is to use it only where it's necessary. Just for pieces that you're uncertain, when you have doubts or you need some advice for somehow, I don't know, some kind of optimization that you cannot do by yourself as a developer. But to use it heavily in everyday coding, I don't know. No, probably it's not the best thing to do.
Yeah, I also see it in terms of Copilot, especially like good first try.
Yeah.
It's not a game changer by any means, but it's something that has potential and it's interesting. Another question, do you think that AI is moving fast and why? And a statement, the first development days of ChatGPT are 2013, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that AI is moving fast?
Yes, and it's getting faster due to the competition that there is in that field. OpenAI had plenty of time to develop their first attempts, like the first versions of ChatGPT, the first Copilot, which is I think 49% there. Yeah. Anyways, and when these things became public, many competitors started working on the similar tools that they will give also publicly, and yeah, this leads to more concurrency and competition and faster development. Like in every other field, it's the same.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So a few words on closure. Maybe you can start first. What are your general takeaways on Copilot, and then I'll add my comments.
Yeah. In my opinion, Copilot is very interesting tool to have. It's definitely can make the developers work easier, but still it's not the thing that will steal our jobs. And the developers still have to be very careful how to use it and what they're exposing to it and how much they believe it.
And my thoughts is AI is moving fast, yes, but it has reached a plateau of how fast it can go. It pushes a bit slower on that because of hardware, because of energy, and basically physics and hardware, because we don't have enough hardware to actually train all those models. Everyone wants to train models, everyone wants to run models and so on. We don't have the hardware ready. And together with some, and it's quite energy inefficient to run AI actually. So the trio of doom, maybe Python, AI, and blockchain. The three of them are quite inefficient technologies, and we are heavily using them. So that's maybe a doomsday scenario for the environment. But on the energy and the hardware side, we don't have the hardware to run twice as much AI and train twice as many models like we do now, because we need twice as much hardware that we just don't have. So AI will progress with slower, actually it will continue with this velocity and even increase the velocity, but not dramatically, because there are real world challenges to that. Those are my takeaways, and I'm pretty hopeful for the huge future of AI and what it will give us. With that, I want to close this session. Thank you all for participating in it, for the great questions, and hopefully it was interesting in seeing the data and seeing the discussion, and hopefully it was worth it for you. Thanks, and until next time.